Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. I hope you've all had a happy Monday so far and a great start to your weeks. Today, we're going to be diving into our daily cryptocurrency market update, and we've got lots that I want to share with you in this video. A lot of what we're going to share in this video is really going to put things into perspective in regards to where we are as a market. And we're going to spend the majority of time looking at Bitcoin. It's a big week this week. Not only is Bitcoin at a very significant level, you can see just where the price is at the moment, how many points of contact this sort of price range, sort of your 42k range, has had since really the start of last year, 2021. And this is a significant level. And whichever way this breaks, there's going to be momentum that follows it. And we covered that in a lot more detail in yesterday's video, but we're going to talk about that again. You also have this week the CPI, the inflation figures coming out for America. Now, they're expecting them to be higher than last time, which I think was 7.1%. I think they're expecting them to be 7.2% on Thursday. How does this affect markets? Because it's going to affect markets. Do we see more dollar weakness, which is, of course, good for Bitcoin? But then again, on the kind of repercussion side of things, does that then mean the Fed then have to sort of start to implement interest rate hikes in more of a hawkish manner than they previously have stated they were going to? So we're going to cover all that. We're going to be talking about Willy Woo. Willy Woo is my favourite on-chain guy. He's not just an on-chain guy, he's becoming increasingly off-chain. And he's been in this market for a long time. He's done everything from trading to, investing to managing funds and so on and so forth. And I was listening to a podcast. The podcast is called What Bitcoin Did by Peter McCormack. I think McCormack is how you say his second name. Now, Peter's views on crypto in general, I completely disagree with. He's a Bitcoin maxi. I think Bitcoin maxis are largely very insecure. But I also, the reason I bring this up was the podcast was great. And it was Willie giving his view on where we are as a current cycle. And there's a number of things. So not only have we got where Bitcoin currently is today being extremely significant, ladies and gents. I mean, you can see all the points of contact that this price sort of range has we've come up against. It's a very, very significant range. Often it's been support, but more so it's been resistance. And once we break it, which I believe we are going to, we're going to see a lot of momentum to the upside. If you look at the sort of typical percent moves breaking up or down from this level where we're currently at, they're usually quite momentumous. So that's what I'm expecting, coupled with everything else. And there's also a number of things that suggest. One thing that Willie really emphasized in that podcast was where we are in terms of cycles currently in comparison with previous cycles. And he's often said that this is the last 4-year cycle theory. This ties in with what we say continuously, that Bitcoin is moving away from this kind of 4-year cycle that is driven by the halvening to a more mature market. And one reason for that, and he also stated that this current or previous pullback for Bitcoin, that of course dragged the entire crypto market with it because Bitcoin is still that tide that rises and sinks all ships, was largely down to futures. It was futures driven, Bitcoin futures ETF driven. The market is naturally going to evolve if there are derivatives around it, because the basket of capital that goes into these investments gets spread. So instead of people spot buying Bitcoin, which they'd have to do over an exchange or potentially over the counter, which has more of an immediate effect, the effects are sort of lessened given the derivatives surrounding it. And capital is spread more thin across the overall market. And if you look at gold, for example, gold should be through the roof. Given everything that's happened over the past 2 years, gold should be through the roof. In fact, the opposite's happened. It's actually downtrending a little bit now. That makes no sense, but makes all the sense in the world when you account for the fact that there's derivatives around it. And that you have gold ETFs, you have more paper gold than there is gold. So you've took a scarce supply asset, whether they say it's 3 or 1 Olympic swimming pool full of it, to now there being 10, 100 Olympic swimming pools because there's more products built around it that people can choose to invest in, and the capital isn't so focused on the actual spot. So it's natural to suggest that as a market, we're maturing and it's going to move differently. And one thing that Willie really emphasized, and I'm going to bring this chart up from the root. Go and give the root a follow, by the way. The Rational Root, shouts out if you're listening. I doubt he is. He's got a huge Twitter following. One thing that he brought up was typically at the top of these cycles, short-term holders are the bag holders. So the cycle's typically top when short-term holders, people that have just got into the market, are at all-time highs. That's what we typically see. In fact, right now you have the opposite. And you can see that over here, ladies and gentlemen, with what the root posted. So there's a number of indicators that suggest we're in for a bit of a good run for Bitcoin. And in actual fact, you know, we've moved many people, and we were huge ambassadors for the Bitcoin 4-year cycle theory. I now think that Bitcoin follows more of an Amazon. So we see these kind of boom and busts in more of a kind of less volatile, potentially more frequent manner. And we've moved away from every 4 years, Bitcoin has a halvening and the supply has to adjust, which is why you get these kind of Boeing 4-year cycle theory structure. Do you see what I mean? So it's all interesting stuff happening. It was, you know, Willie really kind of summed up the fact that there was a lot of futures trading driving this. I've been doing a lot of looking into futures. This is the micro and Bitcoin futures. This is the continuous one, though. You can look at it in a number of different time frames. You won't get it on TradingView, though. And you can see there's a huge correlation here. And often the futures have led the actual spot, which is extremely interesting. And you could definitely argue that there's more, or certainly the majority of people trading futures are big players, because your smaller traditional people like me and you retail aren't going to trade futures because there's a huge premium on doing so. There's fees that are far, far greater, 15+% potentially, in order to holding a futures contract than there is actual spot BTC, which is free essentially to hold once you've paid the fees to get onboarded or on-ramped onto it. So it's a big week coming, guys, and we're prepared for whatever happens. You guys know how bullish I am on crypto. I'm the ultimate bull, guys. But I'm definitely keeping more of an eye on sort of derivatives markets. I think there's a lot of answers lie within the derivatives space than in our space. I think where Bitcoin is currently in terms of price is significant. I mean, for example, when we reject, that was a 31%. When we break it, that was nearly a 60% move. When we reject below it, that was a 30% move. Again, rejection, come down 31%. Break above it, 25%. Come back, hold it as support and break it above it, nearly a 50%. Break below it, 21%. Are we going to see this be the start of an impulsion to a new all-time high on the back of dollar weakness, given that inflation is such an issue and it's something that we're set to see continue? So there's lots going on right now that you guys need to pay attention to. Why we do these daily cryptocurrency market updates is to show you that there's a four-dimensional chess game being played here. You can't just have your blinkers on crypto. You need to be looking at the wider financial landscape around you, because many of the answers to what's taking place within our space lie elsewhere. We are seeing quite a bit of dollar weakness. I'll bring up the dollar. This is Cardano. Altcoins are really largely just going to follow Bitcoin. Some will see periods of outperforming others. Many people say to me, okay, well, why is Cardano a couple of days ago, why was it underperforming the rest of the market? If you look out of the top 7, it's actually overperforming now. This is just how altcoins work. They move on their own merits a lot of the time. XRP's having a good day today, and so on and so forth. But their permission to move, they almost get the okay, you guys can run, the sort of starter pistol from Bitcoin. You know, if altcoins are a part of the boats that are on top of Bitcoin is the tide that rises and sinks all ships. Well, crypto as a whole is a boat upon the ocean. And the ocean will dictate to that boat what it is or isn't doing, not the other way around. The boat doesn't dictate to the ocean what's going to take place. And these are all things you guys need to pay attention to now. And I thought this was really interesting. You know, you can see historically, short-term holders are at a pretty much low. This is typically followed up. Doesn't mean we can't do something like this where we double bottom, we come back down again. That would fit quite a few people's narratives. But it also doesn't mean that we can't, see a real continuation from here. With the inflationary stats, the CPI, the main issue that you've got, and it's a huge issue, is that if, inflation's still running very hot, we're now going to need to really clamp down on it and act more hawkishly than we previously have done, because it's a real issue that's affecting everybody at this point. I mean, the Federal Reserve, and this is something you've got to bear in the back of your mind, they're $30 trillion in debt, the US. Federal Reserve is largely responsible for the US and their monetary policies. In fact, they are. It's in their interests to inflate the metric of debt that they owe away with inflation. But they have to be seen to be doing something about it, because the bottom 40% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in savings. Why Bitcoin was created by Satoshi was for what you're seeing play out today. It's almost too good to be true that Bitcoin and Satoshi came out with Bitcoin in 2008 in the wake of the financial housing crisis. Could potentially, he definitely saw the fact that the fiat systems were failing. And there's plenty of them. We spoke a little bit about it in the Discord community chat, some of the arguments for who it could and couldn't be, and who may or may not be behind it. But it's largely what we're dealing with now is, as an investor, and I've had to do a lot of thinking over the past, certainly when you've had the majority of, or certainly a large number of influential people within crypto coming out and saying they're selling or they'd sold. Lots of them really poorly timed that, by the way, just before the pump, which I think is hilarious. I've had to think, okay, why is it I'm still bullish at this point, and really look at the reasons for that, and also look at the alternative argument. And I'm still unbelievably bullish on crypto, ladies and gentlemen. At a $1.9 trillion market cap, I think there's a lot more probability that instead of this going to 500 million, 1.9 trillion, instead of this going to 500 billion, it's far more likely to go to 4 or 5 trillion than it is to go down. There's still a whole group of people that aren't onboarded on crypto yet in terms of investing, let alone even using it. And that's the value proposition that faces us today, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly the value proposition that I find myself in. And I've invested accordingly. I am all in crypto. I think this is the fastest horse within the race that we're currently taking part in. And I see a very, very bright future for it. A number of other things surrounding things right now is, of course, we know that the Biden administration, or according to a source that knows their plans, has essentially said that he's wanting to regulate crypto as a matter of national security. So how does that affect things? Well, in actual fact, people have took that as a very negative thing. What happens if they regulate it and say, look, okay, we're going to regulate this, we're going to build a framework around it, which is going to allow Wall Street to push it, like they have with every other technological boom, which has always led to a crash later on down the line. So there's so much going on here that you guys need to be switched on to, paying attention to. As far as I'm concerned, I think my money is nicely placed where it is within crypto. We'll know very shortly if it isn't. Remember, historic level to both the up and downside. If we do see a rejection, it's going to be with momentum. Lots of people calling for 29k. I think that anybody coming on YouTube and brave enough to give their opinion deserves a round of applause. But one thing that I do notice is that a lot of people, there's a lot of the same narrative. So a lot of 29k is a number that many people are calling for, and it comes, often from the same source. There are some technicals that could indicate it's down there. We've got this sort of potential head and shoulders. I don't think this is likely. It's too easy, guys. You don't want to go for what's easy. Just like this head and shoulders, you had the likes of Peter Brand and everyone coming up and going, yep, that's it. Michael Burry, even, somebody who I highly, highly respect. And then look at what happened. I think a similar scenario sets up today, ladies and gents. Anyway, I've been rambling on. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. If you've enjoyed this content, a like is always appreciated. So is a comment. Head over to my Twitter, @RealAllInCrypto, and give me a follow over there. We keep you guys up to date daily. Remember, for those of you with Cardano looking to stake, why don't you come and join us at the All in Crypto family? We're growing in delegators daily. We're minting blocks now consistently every epoch and paying out some decent rewards. We can take a look at the 12%, 14%, and this is something that's going to continue, in my opinion. All I have for you, ladies and gents, I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one, hopefully. Thank you.